Hi, so today I'm going to be looking at the JMG Hyperspace reverb. This reverb was designed by Jason Gibbons, and it really is an amazing piece of software. I listen to pretty much every new reverb that comes out in software, and I know most of the hardware reverbs. I'm a bit of a reverb fanatic because the kind of music I mix, which is generally jazz, progressive rock, world music, needs that audiophile, real space clarity that only really the best quality reverbs can provide. So I'm always looking out for things like that, but I also really like sound design and some of the things you can do with reverb and sound design, and that's what's so great about Hyperspace, is it does both incredibly well. There are hardly any reverbs out there that can do real spaces. To my ears, sound like a real space. Only a handful, and Hyperspace is a new one, and it really can create some amazingly realistic spaces. It's fantastic. But it excels also in sound design and creating otherworldly reverbs. It also can do plates and classic hardware reverb emulations. And what makes it even more revolutionary is that the interface allows you access to an almost infinite variety of algorithms. And the depth of the features is beyond anything I've ever seen in a reverb. And yet at the same time, it's incredibly easy to use because of the way the interface has been designed. Brilliant piece of work. Absolutely brilliant. So it gives you deeper control of the reverb than I've ever seen before, but at the same time, it's very easy to use and easy to manipulate in an intuitive way, which is fantastic. So let's have a look. Okay, so let's start with a room sound. And what I'm going to do here is, these are all going to be sounds that I've made. I'm going to move the algorithm slider around on here just because it really gives you a flavor for the kind of spatial changes that you can get. And I've got this on the modern setting, which is the algorithms designed specifically for Hyperspace, which are very impressive in terms of their realism of space. They really do. Like, very few reverbs out there can create a realistic space. And this reverb can do that, which is a very impressive feat. And this just gives you a flavor for some of the 3D changes you get while moving the algorithm around. You probably need to listen to speakers on this because headphones don't produce the soundstage in the way that speakers do. You can't, without using special software for headphones, you don't really, and even with that, for me, it doesn't give that realistic spatial effect that you get when you're sitting in front of speakers. So I suggest if you want to hear this, you use a good pair of monitors. So here we go with a room, and first we'll start without the reverb, so you can hear what it's like dry. And now you can hear it with the reverb. Now I'm going to exaggerate these reverbs and turn them up louder than I'd ever usually have them because it just makes it easier to hear what's going on, especially when I'm demonstrating changes. So you can hear huge amount of variations, and especially when I was moving it around down here, if you listen to the change in the space, the size of the space and the positioning of the space, it's really fantastic. I mean, it's just a different class of reverb to 99% of the reverbs out there. As I said, there's only a handful of reverbs I've heard that do the space thing in a realistic way. I mean, you've got the Bricasti M7, Lexicon BCM 96, and the Sonsig Rev A can do this, and this reverb, this Hyperspace, can very much do this alongside those others. They all sound different, but as I say, and I'm not saying those are the only ones I've heard that do to my ears what's a real sounding spaces, and this one does it superbly. And the variation you can get on those shape and depth of the spaces is superb, with the ability to move through the algorithms this way. Okay, so let's move on now to let's see what we can do next. Maybe another room. So we'll go for this one here. So again, just a stunning realism there. You really can hear the size of the space, and the drums, the snare drum and the toms, which are also being fed through the reverb just in this space. Now we've done rooms. Let's move on to, and we've done plates. Let's move on to halls. So let's see, do this one here. So here you get a chance to listen to the tail and the smoothness of the tail, which again is super smooth and impressive on this reverb. So you can hear a fantastically smooth tail. Again, if you listen to the smoothness of the tail on 99% of the reverbs out there with a percussive instrument, it's not smooth. You can hear graininess or otherwise less than smooth aspect, and this is beautifully smooth. I moved around quite a few of the controls so you could hear a bit of what the distance control did, modulation, tilt and the density. But I have to emphasize that particularly with this section here, I mean, these sound all completely different depending on what you've got set here in the XY pads, as do these. On that algorithm, I had quite a bit of multiply there, which is interesting. Changes the tone and the way things resonate within the reverb. Now let's see what we can do. Another hall. Okay. Maybe we'll do this one. Oh, just by the way, the first two I played of the those two rooms were both, I believe, in the modern, which is the Hyperspace's own reverb, very realistic reverbs. The one I just played before this was the classic, which is those two high-end hardware reverbs, and now we're back to the modern. So this is another hall based on that. So again, beautiful space, really smooth. You get a real big volume to the sound in terms of the space that's there. And now I'm going to mess around with a few of the other controls. I'm going to do this parallel series control, so you can hear what that's like. Okay, that follow control is not going to do, when you move it over to duck, it's not going to do a lot with something like a snare because it's so momentary, the snare anyway. But when I moved it over to match, you could hear how it pulled it in with the snare significantly. Now, I just did a bunch of controls there, just to give you an idea of the variation. I mean, a huge change when you start moving the early reflections to serial. You get a whole different sound of reverb. And I brought in the resonate a bit just so you could hear some of the kind of more special effect aspects that you can be created with this reverb. It really is amazing what you can do, and you get quite a lot of almost psychoacoustic effects when you start changing some of these in terms of the spatial, especially when you've got it on this modern setting, because it is a very realistic sounding space, when you start moving things, you get like a manipulation of the space in a very kind of 3D way, which is just so much fun to play around with, and not something I don't think there's any other reverb in existence which gives you this kind of control where you can actually kind of manipulate that 3D effect in that way. So now let's move on to some special effects. Start with this one here. So I'm going to turn everything off, so apart from the snare, just so that we can hear that on its own. And I'm just going to move through some of these special effects reverb. These are all ones that I made myself, just because I thought I'd have a mess around and see what I could come up with. So that gives you a little bit of a taste, and when I say a little bit, I mean, you know, a tiny bit of a taste of what's possible in terms of sound design with this reverb. It's the possibilities are just immense. I mean, I've only just begun to explore it. I'll do another video which looks at the sound design aspect of it, but I think we've covered all the basics here. I didn't cover the ×2, but I really encourage you to try that, particularly with the real sounding spaces. I really recommend this reverb. It's got such a lot of variation in it, and it's just such a deep and yet so well designed reverb. And you know, the bottom line, the most important thing of course, is just how great it sounds. So I hope you found this useful. If you did, please subscribe and like and ring the bell, all that kind of stuff, and hope to see you next time.